Much for tuning into Alpha Moguls, a show where we speak to some of the finest investing minds in the country to try and figure out how is it that they believe they will generate alpha in their portfolios or the portfolios of their clients over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. Our guest today is Prateek Aggarwal of ASK, and arguably one of the largest money managers on the private side in the country. Prateek, great having you. Thanks for joining in. Hope all is safe.
Yes, all is good. I hope same on your side.
That's what, Prateek. God is kind. And I think despite the fact that the Omicron virus cases are rising mildly in the country, India seems to be in a much better shape than many others. Let me try and get that perspective from you, Pradeep. As we hit a period of multiple central bank meetings, the year end, as well as a newer variant of COVID, what's your sense of how are you approaching investing in general at the current scenario? Are you trying to be a bit cautious? Are you trying to be in defensives or cash? Or are you all out aggressive because the economy might show healthy growth? What's your basic construct?
Yeah, so we are fully invested. We believe markets will sustain. We believe there is double-digit or slightly better returns to be made on a compounding basis in the market. And all completely logical explanations to follow to back this thing up. We do believe that economy is growing well. Yes, there has been some amount of slowdown post-festival season, and we have our eyes there as to post-festival season. Every time it happens, and then it pops up again. So we need to watch that. But the good thing that is happening in India is the first round of economic increase, after the COVID dip was led by consumption, but now it seems like both household capex and private sector capex could take the baton and keep the growth story going for longer. Something that is being attempted in the US as well, but can't be said for many countries globally. Second, this is the period when Indian fiscal situation is standing out in the let's say economy is larger than India, richer than India kind of. The Western world handheld their populations quite a bit during COVID. People were sitting at home still getting checks and all of that, which impacted the fiscal in those countries quite badly. Versus that, Indian fisc is in a good situation. In fact, the government had confidence enough to roll back some of the duties and maybe talk of giving some more leeways going forward. So it is very, very different in India versus the world. So that is the backdrop. We do believe growth continues for longer, and that is something to start with. Second, if we look at valuations, yes, valuations are higher than long period average, no two ways about it. But we are at a market high, and every market high valuations would be higher than long period average. At a high in the market, to compare with averages is not going to get anybody anywhere. So the point is, if you go back to pre-COVID, November, December, January, that period of 1920, valuations were higher than the present. Between that period and now, markets are up 45 to 50%, and earnings are up actually more than that. 15%, 21 over 20, 35% or more. 22 over 21, and a further 15, 16%, 22 over 23 over 22. So earnings themselves explain the move up in the market quite well. And on top of it, versus then and now, we have got a percent decline in interest rates, which to my mind increases the value of the same firm, same cash flows up by 15 to 20%. Now you may take 0.5% away saying, monetary policy will normalize. So coming down to your lot of noise on monetary policy. monetary policy will normalize. So, if you believe it is 20% for 1%, half a percent means 10% gone. Okay, but still, we are cheaper versus the December 19 kind of a period. At that point in time, if you see the indices, they were nicely sustaining. Had it not been for COVID, which caused a sharp dip in the month of March, we would have probably sustained, which then leads me to believe at the current junctures, we are eminently sustainable for a double-digit kind of CAGR growth. Because I have built in the discount rate related benefit in my conversation. So the expectation of future returns hence should also be pared down. And given the fact that today alternative investing spaces do not offer any significant returns. The hurdle rate is lower. If you look at a parameter like a bond yield to earnings yield, we are actually fine. We are averages. And that again makes it very sustainable. Lastly, just want to leave one point, which is the complexion of the index itself has changed. Now, a lot of time I hear people saying, index one standard deviation higher than long period average. But in the long period, the index has changed completely. Only the name remains the same. So to give you some sense, the so-called expensive part of the market, consumers, NBFCs, when I say NBFCs, it is HDFC Limited and a Bajaj Finance, FinServ kind of stuff, retail, insurance, consumers, etc., which used to be either not there or just about 12% in the index 10 years back is now 50% of the index. So if you compare this changed index with long period averages, well, it needs to be higher than long period averages. And which is how you will reconcile that a house which says index is higher than averages and should go down, has a lot of buys from the index itself. So that is what it is.
No, that's an interesting, Pratik, it's an interesting point you make. But okay, let me try and, are you trying to make a point that the next few years will likely have an average multiple, whichever multiple you choose really, but an average multiple which will be higher than long-term averages for good? Because hitherto we haven't really seen the consumer tech companies make their presence felt, and those P's or whatever you have, price to sales as well, are abnormally high. So would we typically have a much higher valuation benchmark, and therefore we shouldn't be, how do I say, flustered if those numbers look higher?
So it will take some getting used to. And it's true for everybody, including myself. You start a conversation saying things are looking expensive. We end it differently. But the thing is, if you believe that the rate cuts are there to stay, then valuations will be higher, assuming similar growth rates. Okay, interestingly, interest rates could be lower in India going forward, let's say 3 years from now. So we are at 6.5% kind of rates. You can borrow for homes at that rate. G-Secs would be lower, etc., etc. Versus the 2002-3 period, when one section of the population actually did not like rates to be so low. The savers, the elders who wanted that income. This time around, people seem to have taken this very well. You have heard no noises of people wanting interest rates to be higher. So on the social side, there is an acceptance towards these lower rates. And second, if you see, look at the stability of the rupee, look at our inflation differential versus that of the West, and any other parameters, chances are that our interest rates, yes, they may take a step back, increase over the next 1 year by, let's say, 0.25 to 0.5%. But over the next 3 years could look lower than what they are today. Over last 10 years, that's happened. Our rates have declined overall by 1.5%, going up sometimes, going down sometimes. But as of now, versus 10 years back, that's the situation. While that of the US may have declined by less than 0.5% in the same period. So that differential is definitely reducing, and that should be expected going forward as well. Now, typically, interest rates decline when your growth rates of the economy also decline. Like China, the big hope is that Indian growth rates will continue to be strong deep into the future. People say this is the decade of India. I believe this is the decade of India. So you have good growth rates, lower interest rates, which means valuations are going to be sustainably higher.
Got it. With that construct, Prateek, and an assumption that the genesis of the whole purpose of, or the whole idea of creating alpha is to beat the returns that an average index would give, and not necessarily that your portfolios are benchmarked to the Nifty. But let's assume that there is a double-digit mid-teens, double-digit mid-teens kind of a growth for the broader end of the spectrum. What is the, actually, before I get to that question, Prateek, sorry, just one quick follow-up. What is the risk to this thesis? 12 months out, a double-digit growth, what is the risk? Because we are entering a year which has got a very large political event in the UP elections. And we are on the throes of central banks turning their commentary a little bit. So even if they don't move too much on the rates, there might be noise around what the banks could do, etc. So what is the risk to this double-digit growth in the markets?
So this is long period compounded that I shared with you. Obviously, it's not going to be a straight line. It will have its dips and ups. So the immediate risks are, yes, when you increase rates, you reduce the liquidity, surplus liquidity in the system. But like I said before, the pricing in the market today is such that 0.5% kind of an increase in interest rates should be absorbed without an issue. The taper tantrums that we saw in 2013 should not repeat themselves. Now, one, they are doing it much better this time. Second, our forex reserves are much better versus then. Third, in this period, we simply did not get commensurate foreign buying like we did in the pre-calendar 13 period. So very, very different kind of a situation. And, Indian markets are today held up by Indians rather than foreign money. So as long as confidence of the Indian investing public is maintained, I think the thesis stays strong. Yes, if a disease crops up and causes disruption, well, we try to price that as well. Versus the first period of COVID, when the country was shut down and it was not sure as to for how long we stay in the lockdown situation. In the second round, it became very, very clear that lockdowns would be the last instrument of control. We will stay open for business. Now, if that happens, then you can price it. A quarter of disruption in business, if you survive, is less than 1.5% of impairment to value. Okay, so that is what it is. Today, what is happening is a lot of these things are happening simultaneously, and hence maybe the market is having to digest it. But give it time, I think these levels are levels which are sustainable. A month, 1% a month kind of returns should be expected from here.
Got it. So then, Prateek, with the belief, or if my understanding is correct, and if you're pretty sanguine about a double-digit medium-term return, and ceteris paribus maybe comes in a kind of a linear fashion, although it never does. But let's assume, for argument's sake, that over a 2-year period, you might still get these kind of returns at some point of time. My question is, how do you propose to generate alpha over the broader end of the spectrum? I'm guessing your portfolios are flexi cap in that sense and not necessarily benchmarked to necessarily having a larger set. How do you propose to generate that alpha? Do you believe that there are certain themes which might have a valuation re-rating versus certain themes which might actually move as per the earnings growth, where you guys believe that the earnings growth will look very solid? Can you give us some sense?
Sure. So, to my mind, the way to generate alpha in a situation like this is to have businesses, high quality businesses. So we stay in the quality space. I need not repeat that. In that space, the higher the growth and for longer, the sustainability of that growth is what will provide alpha. In the index, for example, different parts of the index will provide growth at different point in times. In this year, for example, commodities are providing a large delta on the EPS that cannot sustain forever. As and maybe next year some other part will do. But for our portfolios, if you see, you will probably see the same company delivering strong growth for sustained period of time. So of a quantum which is in the best case for the index, like index maybe lesser than index, but generally speaking over a 4-5 year CAGR basis, higher than the index on a non-dilutive basis. So practically no company that we hold would go to the equity markets to fund a 20-25% kind of growth. So that is the key thought that we have. Now, to achieve it does require a lot of tailwinds. It's not easy. Tailwinds could be unorganized to organized kind of shift that we are seeing very, very strongly in the country. Business after business is benefiting from that. In fact, if you look at scatter of 3,000 companies and you divide it into deciles, it is the top 3 deciles where things have turned around and profits are really coming, which is what markets are cheering. The bottom 5-6 deciles are still showing a lot of pain, pointing to a shift in business towards the larger names. So in spaces where the unorganized presence is large, we do believe this move will provide a lot of tailwinds. This could be, for example, in the jewelry space. We have names there. It could be in the footwear space. Second, of course, is China plus one. Now, both the things are happening. China is getting richer. It also wants blue skies, and voluntarily is not wanting to expand certain capacities. While many businesses are going elsewhere, some are coming to India. Textiles, for example, after going to Bangladesh, Vietnam, I think now our guys are also getting positive. Pharmaceuticals and chemicals. For everything else, I believe we will have to jostle for with the competitive world. But for pharmaceuticals and chemicals, I think our businesses are in a super position. There is no other country with an ecosystem like ours. So there is a lot of tailwind for these spaces. So we have names from these spaces. Yes, COVID has changed behaviors. I think many of them may be changed for keeps. So, for example, diagnostic chains, people will go there more to get themselves tested. They are benefiting from unorganized to organized as well, consolidation as well. So that is an added space to look at. Third is the net-based businesses. We do believe, while many of them are not cheap, and we have looked at them, spent a lot of time on them. A lot of them are not cheap, but this is a space where growth will be there, higher quantum of growth, and for very long. So again, this is a space where we have got some exposure, not very high, but some exposure. So those are the thoughts.
Okay, Pratik, the street, after rewarding, let's say, some of the spec chem companies quite non-linearly, I wouldn't use the term disproportionately, but non-linearly, in the last 6 odd months, both on spec chem and pharma, there has been a sharp pullback for 1 quarter of disappointment. Do you take this in your stride? Do you believe that the growth story is so long that you would use these dips to buy, or how would you approach this? Because suddenly the space, after having 7-8 years of fancy, seems to have just lost its footing a little bit.
Yeah. So you are saying more about chemicals. Pharma actually, after the first round of participation last year, has been consolidating.
Consolidating, yeah, true.
Diagnostic chains have done well. Now, for chemicals, two things have happened. One, the quarter numbers did not show growth. Let me put it this way. While the stock price had shown a lot of growth, and that may have disappointed people, while it was known that second quarter will be weaker than the first quarter, given the way commodity prices were moving. So chemicals at the end do have an element of commodity. The prices, the margins move up and down, and that has to be taken in the stride. What is going for them, and what we believe will continue to be on their side, is the strong capacity expansions deep into the future. The makeup of the market, the broad makeup is that we account for 3% of global capacities. The global demand growth is of similar order, 3-odd%. And if no other country in the world wants to do more of chemicals, then theoretically speaking, our guys, if they were able to expand capacities, could have doubled up every year. As we speak, they're doubling up every 3 years. And this is something we believe we would continue to see for next 6-7 years at the minimum. So, if you get a dip, and dips are good, because if you're convinced on a space, convinced on a name, dips is when you can actually build the portfolio. Otherwise, when the names are in strong upward momentum, maybe the upside gets lesser, and it becomes difficult to build the portfolio in such times. So, such small bearish phases are completely welcome, frankly. Otherwise, you can't build portfolios.
Interesting. Okay, I think we have time for maybe 2-3 more questions. There are a few themes, and I'll come to the consumer tech businesses after this question. But there are a few themes, Prateek, which were not there. I know you invest in businesses for the really long term, but there are some businesses which were not even existing and were not the fancy, say, 18 months ago. And some PLI beneficiaries may be out there. The whole ethanol play out there. You would probably consider the EV space and the fancy that it has taken right up there. Where is it that you find favor, if you do, within some of these newer themes? And let's not talk about the consumer tech. That will come to after this concept.
Yeah, so we looked at all of these spaces. All of these spaces have a presence in the portfolios. So, for example, in the EV space, very difficult to play it through an OEM just now, but auto ancillaries are a good way to play that. And we have an auto anc exposure done well for us. You can also play it through, let's say, chemical space. There are some of these new listings which are focused on the EV space. We haven't really gone there. While we have looked at these names, but we haven't really gone there. Ethanol, we latched on very early, but while the size of the opportunity is large, but it's divided between lots of companies, and it becomes more like one shot kind of returns rather than a compounding nature of returns. And it did not help that at the same time global sugar prices. So, all the sugar mills will put up ethanol plants. De facto, the ethanol pricing will dictate sugar pricing at some point in time. because ethanol is market linked while sugar prices are still controlled. That is how the control will go away. That is how at least the quantum of sugar that the country produces will be market linked rather than policy or regulation linked. But then, with so many mills putting up ethanol capacities, and at the same time, sugar prices moving up also, these stock prices moved up sharply and did not give juicy enough opportunity to get in. The equipment manufacturers we looked at, there is one very, very good equipment manufacturer, frankly, even on a global basis. But there, it seems like a 3 to a 5 year kind of an opportunity. We are still not accepting that it can be a decade long opportunity. So what happens is sugarcane gets over, that's the easy part. It gets over pretty quickly in terms of sugarcane to ethanol mix. Then comes broken grains, stuff that people don't eat, animals don't eat. Instead of rotting, you make ethanol out of it, which is also easy, not very difficult. Economics are not as good. Then comes ethanol from cellulose, husk and all of that, the wheat shafts, etc., etc. That again, the pilot has been made, but economics as yet I don't know. If that succeeds, it can be a really long period opportunity. So that is how it is. We looked at it, but are not invested in this space.
Okay, just one quick follow-up. PLI, there are some 15, 16 sectors. Are you enthused by, because some of them have run up also quite a bit, Prateek. So what now?
PLI, if you see, the biggest investment by the government is in electronics. Under 3 or 4 heads, so club them all together. So telecom equipment would also be done by the same electronic company as would probably an AC or a washing machine kind of stuff and a cell phone. So that is where we have seen names emerge of a meaningful size. And yes, that's something that we are positive upon. We do believe Make in India, that's a great initiative. It will last beyond the PLI benefit period of 4 to 5 years. And yes, we have investments in that space.
Okay, Prateek, what about the other key opportunities, which is, or the new fancy, which is consumer tech? Well, Nykaa and Zomato are showing that even in a bad market, even though there's not much history out there, but in a bad market, what is perceived to be expensive is not cracking really. So there is appetite for these names, and there are some more to follow. Are you enthused? Are you circumspect about the opportunity?
No, let me give a slightly long and rounded answer to it. So these are things that the next generation uses more than the current generation. Okay. Now, just making a small point, one old man today drank Coke, bought Coke, made money. Now, times have changed, times are changing. If the next gen is going to do more of these companies, well, probably they could do well. I have looked at these companies. It requires perfect execution. Lot of tailwinds and blessings of God for them to justify the current price for meaningful returns.
Yeah. So I reckon that you like the opportunity, but not at the price. Is that a good summation?
Yes, that is a great one. Because all of them will survive. All of them have their place under the sun. They are needed. It is the valuations that keep us away.
Somebody told me that he would look at it if it corrects by 50%, and he said that I know that it won't, but that's what I would look for. Are you that of that opinion? I mean, maybe not the exact percentage, but do you need a sizable correction in those teams for you to look at it?
So for a sizable correction, yes, we will look at them. We are looking at them. It's not as if we are not looking at them, which is, I mean, almost every day. These are new spaces. You really want to understand them well before you commit large monies for long term. We don't play momentum by and large.
True.
So there are many variables. The COVID situation, for example, has influenced many of the cost factors quite substantially. It does require a period. I'm just talking of one, which is human cost. The behavioral change that people had. People did not want to go out as much. So every one of these businesses have seen a bump up in some part of the COVID. Maybe not the first one, but maybe the second one. Cost moved down. For example, if jobs were not available, then maybe you could get people cheaper and did not have to pay what you're having to pay now. So we really need to see what numbers we have seen in the run up till now, which is still the COVID period, sustaining post COVID, because the valuations are extremely sensitive to growth. Margins, contribution margins. EBITDA will take a long time. And discount rates. So all three, and hence, if interest rates move down, these are the spaces even globally that see a large correction. So with so much variability that is possible, I think it is a must to be sure of what you are buying, why you are buying. We follow a team-based approach, and I can tell you today there is a spectrum, pretty large spectrum of thoughts that we have. In some of the cases, maybe a 30-40% drop itself would not justify the price that we are looking for. Because at the end of it, if you believe that the economics that was seen in the COVID will revert back to pre-COVID period, and then improvement starts from there on, the numbers will look very, very different.
Okay, I think I'll ask you one final question. You can, depending on the time that you have, choose to give a long or a short answer. And that is, you would have observed, because you look at financials so closely, both lending, non-lending, and the current talk of town is the kind of disruption that fintechs could cause to likely lending financials, but maybe even non-lending. What is your thought on this whole thing? And therefore, how do you approach it from an investing perspective? Would love to know that before we wrap up.
Yeah, so yes, you are right. If this is a space which has not worked or relatively worked less in this bump up in the market, it is because maybe people are thinking that fintechs could cause some amount of disruption in the lending space as well. So few thoughts there. We believe why some of the names may not be working is more because they may be expensive to start with, point one. Point two, many of them may be seeing regime changes. So, regime changed in Indus, in HDFC, may change over next 2 years in Kotak and so on. So that may be a larger reason for these names not performing and the starting valuations versus fintechs. Now, second, fintechs, very few of them actually raise their own, none raise their own monies. All depend on the banks for the money. Now, when you are in that kind of a situation, if the bank can simply stop that flow. It is unlike other places where they raise money and lend money. Indian fintechs have to cover quite a bit of ground. It is good to see them as a symbiotic relationship between banks and them, helping banks go to spaces where they on their own would not, kind of situation. And lastly, payment was disrupted. Okay, payment was disrupted because payments made no money. You got UPI pretty quickly, and payment as an instrument does not make money for anybody. Everybody makes money in lending. So the cakewalk that many of these fintechs had in payments probably would be very different in lending. There will be stiff competition. So those are the thoughts. I think as of now, finance is reaching a very small part of total population. We can have a lot more people come in and make finance reach a much larger part of population. And that leads me to believe that both NBFCs and retail-focused banks could continue to do well for quite some time actually going forward. The current lull in the market could be a great buying opportunity. We are looking at things normalizing, credit costs reducing, and business growth getting stronger as we speak. So it could be a good opportunity, except for the regime change, etc., that we spoke about.
Imagine time flew by, Prateek. Couldn't even talk about the capex related things, but maybe we'll save that for another conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
And viewers, thanks for tuning in.